Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much again for joining me here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Let's take a look here at SUI, see what's going on. Obviously getting a lot of requests for this one to, inquire if it's worth buying the dip or where we're at here. SUI had a really super strong pullback here. We saw about 4 or 5 overextensions to the downside, all the way from 520 to basically 430. So pretty substantial pullback. It is recovering well compared to Bitcoin for the moment. So if we kind of look at Bitcoin's chart, it's fairly one-to-one with it, which is actually good compared to majority of the other markets. Like traditional coins, a lot of other coins that are supposed to do well are pretty much underperforming with this pullback here, right? Keep in mind, Bitcoin dominance is jumping up. Money is flowing away from altcoins and just going right into Bitcoin. Or just in general, money's flowing away from altcoins going into stable coins, and Bitcoin's roughly going sideways with a little buying pressure. We do have a lot of volume kind of flowing away from Bitcoin as far as the overall sense of the last 4 hours. So what that basically just means for us is that Bitcoin has to maintain this $90,000 range. If we lose it, it's going to be a pretty bad day. It's already a really bad day, I'm sure, for a lot of folks, especially anyone using leverage, because you take these 10 to 15% moves to the downside and you increase that by 2, 3, 4, likely 10 to 20x, most people probably got destroyed and or liquidated. Good news is we didn't as a community here. We were a little bit more on the safe side while there's less signals in general. Please read through my market signals update if you're part of my premium group. We can see a lot of pressure at the 91,400 mark, but we took a nice short there roughly 4 days ago with about 60% profit from 95.4 to about the 89K range. Granted, we took along with Cardano over the weekend, quick little pump. We got in, got out. Again, this market is not super favorable for confirmation. So you got to recognize that, being very careful and not over trading is really important. Being careful, that just depends on your risk tolerance. It's easier to say than do. But what you do have control over is not over trading and not trading too much, right? Not buying every single dip. Now, when I say that, I'm referring to leverage, folks. You should never be just setting limit orders on a leverage play. That's just completely ridiculous. Obviously, if you're watching it, you can do that, but don't just fall asleep and be like, I'm going to take a long at 450, with 10x leverage, for example. That's just very dumb. Spot bags, different story. Feel free to add to your position. I'm hoping we see the $3 range again for SUI, so we can go ahead and add to our spot bags there. I'll be starting to provide more dollar cost average target videos here soon, because I get a lot of requests for that when the market's pulling back. We want to kind of know those key levels. We can touch on that today, of course, but just know I'll be making more content regarding that. And then in the meantime, let's go ahead and see what liquidation levels look like here based on our previous liquidation. There's still pretty heavy concentration here, folks. We got about $3.50 to $4 is that massive area of liquidation. So I'm willing to speculate we will see that level if Bitcoin has some kind of significant dump to that $84,000 to $86,000 range, which is its current liquidation, next step for liquidation. I don't think you can see it on this chart here, because again, Bitcoin does have a chunk between 96 and 98.5. We may see a slight relief rally for Bitcoin, but the truth is, trust me on this, folks, for the macro perspective, Bitcoin has a lot of liquidation between 84 and 86,000. Anyways, we're not here for that, but it is important to recognize how Bitcoin's behaving in order to perform well or do well with altcoins. So just know $3.50 to $4 is that rough estimate of liquidation. I have limit orders at like $3.50, $3.75, just kind of like some nice easy round numbers to the downside in case the price wicks down. Okay, I'm very interested in the $3 range for SUI as far as my spot bag is concerned. We take a look here, larger time frames, $3.24 to $4. Basically, anywhere between $3 to $4 is heavy concentration of liquidation, kind of implying that we may actually see that range here retested. Just based on how aggressive the market makers are right now, they are dumping the market. Bitcoin loses 90,000, folks, start trending towards the mid to lower 80K range. We're going to see a reckoning from a lot of altcoins. But again, between now and then, you don't just arbitrarily, jump in. We want to kind of wait and be a little patient here, okay? Because knee-jerk reactions right now are happening, and we could very well see a swift recovery, but it seems less likely right now, just based on how bad Bitcoin is bleeding out. Taking a look here, though, liquidation delta, it's still mostly bearish, so people are more short heavy than long heavy with SUI, which I totally understand. I will never short. I've vowed to never short SUI again. Granted, my trading bot does so, and people ask me why. It's just because it's pretty much fearless, and it takes trades based on a short-term confirmation. Okay, so please, if you're in my Plus group, make sure you do your own analysis concurrent with it, or just understand the macro trend. Not every signal is going to be exact, but it does find good entries on short-term holds. We take a look here. 445 is that local area where people are the most heavy. So we do see some support here at 445. We lose that level, potential further consideration of the downside. So we'll zoom in here in a moment, kind of take a look at that. But on the daily time frame, I want to kind of recognize a few important things here, such as the moving average. So again, please understand, folks, that moving averages are not like key level supports. People seem to think so. They're more so just like support ranges, something that kind of gives you a barometer of where you're at and a potential reality of the price, either continuing in either direction. Okay, so being above the 20-day SMA is important. We're tentatively below that for the moment, unless we close over 463. It's pretty safe to presume we're going to be below that. But if you look at its history, every time SUI comes below the 20-day SMA, it generally recovers within a few hours, but more importantly in this case, kind of a few days. There's been a couple of times where it's stayed below for a few days. So I would say if we don't recover back over the 20-day SMA in the next couple of days, then we're probably going to see further downside, right? But the important thing here, I think, is to look at this 50-day SMA. We can see it's only been tested one time here, and then it's also only been tested maybe one or two, actually there's about 3 or 4 attempts there, but back, if you remember, when SUI was in the $160 to $2 range, we can see that it was retested a few times. So the key takeaway here is that this is a good trend, effectively letting us know that being above that is important. We haven't been below that since, I think it was September. The last time we were under the 50-day SMA was back here in September / August. Okay, so understand that. That's a good sign to be above it. So again, remaining above the $425 range is extremely important here to be able to continue to maintain this ascending type of trend. We're right here at 50 on the RSI, and I say right here, technically it's below, but the daily candlestick hasn't closed yet. It's a little too early or premature to assume we're going to lose that level, but we haven't been below 50 on the RSI, again, since roughly November, and even at that point, it was just barely below. So the truth is this coin has a ton of momentum, still looking pretty good, even though there's a lot of reasons from stochastic and MACD, which are momentous indicators, letting us know the short term we could see the price pull back further. The overall trend is still up, right? So try not to check out and be like, okay, it's over, we're going to the ground floor. We're not quite there yet. Okay. Now again, I'll post a playout chart in our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord, update our levels here. But from the relevant recent liquidation, or more importantly, sorry, the local fib levels here, we can see we're getting kind of stuck at this 450. 450 is a likely resistance range for us. Okay. Now, from a macro perspective, we zoom out a little bit more here. Let's go ahead and just kind of look. This is roughly since December. We've seen the most amount of volume here for SUI at about 425. And what do you know? The price action bounced right off that here today. Okay. So 425 seems like a very sensible dollar cost average target if the price were to retest that level. We have a ton of support there. So for now, that's the tentative bottom. Okay. So good news is 425 is a nice little support range. I would actually recommend 426 as an entry, just because a lot of times price will wick right down perfectly to that level, and sometimes you may not get filled. Having said that, though, we take a look at that, and then we kind of combine that with support ranges. There's a lot of support in the $3 range, so I'd be very surprised if we see anything even close to the low $3 range. I'd say 350 is probably a best case scenario, and that's this guy right here. We'll talk about that later. But just know, 425 / 426 would be a good consideration for averaging into your spot bag, and or considering a long position with extremely low leverage. Now let's take a look here. We can see a bounce off 30 on the RSI with money flow index below it. Generally speaking, that's a favorable place to get in. Hindsight's 20/20, of course, but I've always talked about 30 on the RSI, 20 on the MFI being a good consideration for entry as far as just kind of an overall sense. Keep in mind, you're always gonna see a bunch of bearish divergence leading into that. That's obviously what kind of par for the course, right? But that's generally an overextended state where the price action will recover. We saw this local liquidation range here get swept, and the price recovered from there. So there's multiple reasons why that's a high risk play, but if done effectively and you watch it closely, it can be a high success rate too. But again, I don't generally recommend taking longs into this kind of divergence. But if we do take a look at TD sequential here, we can see we're massively overextended. We were overextended leading into 475 when we came all the way as low as 425. At this point here, it seems sensible for the price to recover, pending Bitcoin doesn't lose 91,000. I think we range from 91 to 93,000 for Bitcoin. Solid chance we see that continue, SUI continue higher. It will probably retest its recent support range as a new resistance. So we got to recognize that this previous resistance is now previous support is now a resistance. Okay, so when you kind of look at this here, we got to recognize that this area of 470 upwards of 485 is going to be that new potential resistance. We've also got a point of control at 480. So if you're going to consider securing profits between here and there, 480, 479 would be a solid consideration for profit, because again, we're going to need a lot of volume to get through this resistance range. But we have effectively swept this lower level just below here, presumably just swept all that liquidation. Okay, so take a look at the hourly. This is also going to confirm that we're a long ways away from taking a long position with confidence. Again, trading with confirmation is a little different than buying a potential dip, right? So me personally, we've seen a lot less opportunities in the market because confirming factors keep coming and going quickly. In other words, like the price action will come up here. Oh, great, good time to take a long, and then all of a sudden just fake out, comes back down. More so referring to Bitcoin, SUI is a different story, but that's kind of how the market has been behaving. Okay. Anytime we get some kind of false breakout, that's why I emphasize not being a breakout trader, you will see the price action reject at those key levels. So again, we want to wait and be patient. We need a daily closure, I'd say at 480 or higher to be safe, just because resistance range, point of control, there's a lot of confluence at that 470 to 480 range. And it's important to make sure that we hold that level first before we take a long. And if you are taking a long into that, please understand there's a common rejection level. So it would make sense to secure profits prior to that level, all right? All right, so I'll post a playout chart here shortly on our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. Again, I'll start getting some DCA target videos out here soon, but just know we're not out of the woods here by any stretch. The market's terrible, not a good time to buy. And again, I'm more so referring to leveraged longs. Buying a spot bag, adding to your spot bag every time the price comes down, I've been doing that myself personally, okay? So again, you just want to be kind of careful and cautious in how you trade, but for the most part, leveraged longs doesn't make a ton of sense right now. We want to wait for confirmation. Between now and then, consider some shorts at key level resistance. All right, now again, I'm just speaking generally with altcoins, not specifically SUI. I never recommend shorting this coin. All right, folks, we'll look forward to seeing the next one. Hope you have a good rest of the day. Thanks so much again for your time. Like, subscribe, follow. We'll see you soon. Take care.